Welcome to Audacious Business, a community for entrepreneurs, business owners, workplace leaders, and investors who seek to glorify God in the workplace and marketplace alike. In today's series, we will be looking at kingdom principles and how we can apply these in our everyday lives.
I'm Emma Braithwaite. I'm married to Kevin Braithwaite and I've got two sons, Kai and Caden Braithwaite. My current role is VP of Sales for Ricoh. So Ricoh is a global Japanese company, tech company. So globally they turn over about 17 billion revenue. So I look after sales across Europe. In Europe we turn over just under 4 billion. We've got about 2,000 salespeople across 26 different countries. So I kind of work in a regional headquarters role. So I kind of oversee all our sales teams in our kind of operating companies in Europe. So quite busy. We came to Audacious, I think we came about 2 weeks after this particular campus started. And kind of been coming ever since. So for quite some time. I don't know if you know a lot about Japanese company culture, but they set very, very high level strategy, like really high level. And then the regions have to kind of disseminate that strategy and kind of then look to execute it at a local country level. And so because I work for Ricoh Europe, so we absolutely do set objectives and key results, etc. for the countries. And we do a lot then to work with the individual, because some countries are large and quite self-sufficient, others are quite small and they need a lot more guidance because they don't necessarily have all the same infrastructure. Our role is to make sure our countries are successful. I also then have a specific team that work for me directly in Europe where we support the countries with kind of international and global deals. I looked after a lot of the councils in Greater Manchester. And then my experience, it kind of grew from there, and eventually I stepped out of being like an individual contributor into more of a sales manager, a sales leader, and then it's kind of gone from there. And what's interesting is my career literally went hand in glove with my Christian journey. So when I graduated, when I got this first opportunity, I had to move away from home. So I actually started down in Bristol, and that's exactly where I became a Christian. So it was in Bristol that I became a Christian I went and did the Alpha course. So it's kind of always gone hand in. I've always questioned whether what I was doing was God's purpose, but in some ways I think it's just naturally evolved. One of my weaknesses probably is that I'm a big self-doubter, and as I've progressed, because I was reflecting on a couple of things earlier with my husband and just saying, I don't want to make sure this interview is really positive, because I've not necessarily had to keep applying for roles. That over the years a lot of things have come to me, stepped into them going, oh my gosh, am I really able to do this? And I do think women in particular are very, very hard on themselves in a work capacity, because I think we'll always look at a job spec and we'll always look at what we think we can't do rather than maybe the 80-90% of things we can do, and then we'll talk ourselves out of it. So I think when I reflect back on my whole career, I think being a Christian, being connected in church, and the sermons and everything that you kind of learn and read and grow has taught me that I am enough just as I am, and I am a child of God, and I try to bring that into the workplace. So when I'm having those moments, I have to remember whose I am, and there's a lot of situations that I've had through the years where 100% I've given them to, because I have dealt with some quite tough situations. and positive ones, or very nerve-wracking situations when you're kind of working on a big bid and everybody wants it, whatever. But I try to give all of that to God, and then I do believe he's carried me through the highs and the lows. So yeah, he's definitely turned up for me. I completely don't look the mould of a corporate leader at all. I really don't. I don't wear power suits. I don't act that way. I'm incredibly, I'm not going to sound humble now, but I think I'm incredibly humble, and I do operate a lot with humility. And so the way I am because I've got some now senior leaders working for me, but my kind of perspective on it is ultimately we're all a team. The hierarchy thing doesn't really mean much to me. I'm not somebody that has to be a particular grade or job title. I think, yes, we have got a mission that we're trying to achieve, but I think in everything we do with our customers, we've got to work with high integrity. And actually in selling, it is all about relationships, and it's all about trust, and customers, I think they buy from you as much as they do the brand and the products. And I've always carried even from when I was doing very low value, very small customers right the way through to today. I think it's about, carrying yourselves with integrity in everything that you do. And then I very much, and I know it might sound a bit cliche, this whole concept of servant leadership, but in the workplace, I would never ask anybody to do something if I wasn't prepared to do it myself. And I know it's a little bit harder the higher up you go, because you're juggling a lot of demand and you do need to learn delegation. And I think sometimes being a nice person in business and not having the ability always to say no can go at your own personal cost, because you end up carrying the burden of lots and lots of things. But I think that's the way I operate with, I guess I have a very open personality. To me, I don't want anybody to be intimidated or fearful, because I don't see myself as anybody special. Yes, I've got a lot of years of experience, but ultimately I want anybody to feel that they can come and talk to me. Somebody actually called me a mother hen yesterday. They said, "Oh, you're very much like a mother hen." I don't know whether that's good or bad, but I think it's because people don't feel uncomfortable speaking to me, whereas in a very hierarchical organisation, sometimes people can be like that, whereas I'm just not like that. I am very driven, and I'm very results orientated. But I think a big lesson I've learned through the years is I'm only as good as my team, which I know again is quite cliche, but actually my big motivation, because I'm actually cultivating a new team at the moment, bringing various teams together, and ultimately I just want to have an environment and create an environment for them all to thrive, because if they're happy and they're engaged and they know what's expected of them and they feel that they've got an environment that they can succeed in, then ultimately we will deliver what we need to deliver. One of the biggest things that we can do as leaders is just be clear. Just be very, very clear on, because you often in high pressured times, you will have a lot of people reacting. Especially if you're going through periods of change, and so in managing other people's emotions, I think you have to try and stay grounded, and that's, I guess, where the Holy Spirit 100% would come in, and then try and give very, very clear direction, even if it's in bite-sized chunks and things like that. And 100%, I think you need to bring joy into the workplace. Work has to be fun. If it's not, and people, because I have had the last 6 months has been quite tough for me, because we've been through a bit of a restructure. I do operate with a lot of people with a lot of big egos, and yet I've ended up in a role where they're reporting into me and things like that. So that's been quite difficult to manage. And I've just had to learn to connect with them on some type of, I wouldn't say spiritual level, but some type of I don't know, so there is some mutual respect and whatever, and actually some of my biggest successes when I look on last year hasn't necessarily been results, although the results were pretty good. It's been relationships that have gone from being quite awkward to actually becoming very, very positive. Because I like I say, I can only deliver results if the people working for me are in a good place, because if they're not, then they won't be connected to what they're doing. So I think there's lots of practical ways you can bring the fruit of the Spirit into work, for sure. Is about, and it's not always easy, because I think in a work, and I'm sure even in the running of church, you can get very task orientated. But the reality is we are dealing with humans all the time. And I am actually really, really blessed that my company, whether it's the Japanese culture, I don't know, because their business style is very different to like Western culture. They're a lot more reflective. They don't, because I have been, over the years, I've been in meetings where I've had quite aggressive senior leaders, where their style is very directive and whatever, but Japanese culture is a lot gentler. It doesn't mean that they don't get the same outcome. And I have been, over the last few years, involved in like leadership courses that have been far more about human-centered connectedness, being very, very present in meetings, seeing people as humans and not the outcome of a task, and connecting with, I guess, with people on a much more human level. And I think you have to. I think whether you're dealing with customers or employees and team members, you've got to be able to connect with people on a human level, because ultimately nobody's better than anybody else. It's just we all, you have different levels of experience, and then ultimately you may be given more responsibility. But yeah, we're all one, really, aren't we? Like Pastor Glyn would always talk about like praying and obviously letting God lead you and guide you and help evolve your purpose. I think on a very practical level, because I've had this conversation with somebody recently, in a corporate world, one thing I've learned is I know I've been quite fortunate to have lots of doors open for me, but you can't leave your career to chance. You've got to have and that doesn't mean that you're going to say day one, I want to be CEO, but I think you've got to establish some type of career plan with maybe some sensible milestones, so that you make it known to people of your aspirations, and even if you have to develop skills and layer in different training to reach it, that you actually set out with an intention. Because I think I've seen many, many, many people in my career stay doing the same role for 10, 15, 20 years. Now that's fine, and actually every company needs those type of people. But actually you never know what you could become if you don't give it a try, and you don't actually manifest it or verbalize it or give it to God in the first place. So I definitely having some type of career plan is quite, and maybe it's realistic, maybe it can be really super aspirational, but I think you need to kind of know your direction of travel, and then make sure you get some good executive sponsorship or mentorship to help you navigate that, especially as a young person. I think my other big bit of advice would be, they will, especially for some people, if they're anything like me, a bit of an overthinker and somebody that would question their ability, is you're going to have moments where it feels really scary. And actually, I know again it's a cliche thing about feel the fear and do it anyway, but actually it is sometimes the only way to get there, is to put yourself into that situation, know that God has got you, and even if it fails for any reason or the door isn't open, you will learn something from it, and you've got to then take that into the next step. But actually, what you will find is in some situations it all works out, and then you realise a lot of the fears are just thoughts in your head and emotions that aren't necessarily true. Because I do think we talk a lot of negative stuff to ourselves sometimes. So yeah, just really feeling that, you know, you're walking in that journey with God, and to step into things even if they do feel scary, because they will. I think every rung you go up, even if you were already the finished article, you wouldn't necessarily be going for that job. Then you stretch again, type of thing. So you don't have to be the finished article at all.
Thank you for listening and partnering with us as we equip one another and grow together as marketplace leaders. We look forward to seeing you at our next gathering. Bye for now.